Many of the issues at the moment which are described as about language, actually with the Russell Brand show, weren't actually about language as much as context and the events themselves not being scrutinised. So I think there's a difference between I have said to my teams that I think it's important to use thought about what the purpose is of anything, but actually that is a much better way of going about these questions rather than looking at some sort of total blanket anything. But if you look at the BBC's editorial guidelines, which actually are very good, there is no real change in policy here, in that the referral process and compliance forms are meant to highlight uses of language, and not just as a string of words, but the context. And the context in feature films is entirely different, for example, than a context in a documentary, for example. So a bunch of soldiers in Afghanistan swearing is piece of verite evidence, which the discussion might be about where we schedule it. Is it pre or post watershed, for example? Not about whether the language itself is inappropriate. So I think this is all about context. And indeed, there are the three most offensive words, which are, again, in the producer guidelines: F, MF, and C. Those aren't the only things you should worry about in terms of taste, for example, and standards. But actually, you might like to know that the C word goes to me already, directly, and always has. That was one of the surprises when I got the job of being head of television. I haven't come from American broadcasting, which is curiously not that regulated. At the same time, everything sort of has to be complied, and we certainly wouldn't have had a Janet Jackson moment here if somebody ripped off their bodice quite in that way. So I get the C word anyway, and actually, if you look at the guidelines, F and MF in their full form are actually referred to controllers.